Thanks, Grace. That was great. I thought it was really interesting and useful how you use the altmetrics data to figure out where there's active conversations and see where you might be able to participate in that conversation. That was a great takeaway. Thanks. Okay, which button am I pushing? There we go.
It's not the most intuitive, I have to say.
Yeah, it's hard to see it in the dark.
It's the down arrow.
So hello, my name's Tara Robenalt. I'm the Director of Product with PLOS. And a little bit about who we are. We are a nonprofit publisher and also an advocacy organization. And our goal is to accelerate progress in science and medicine. And we do that by leading transformations in research communication. A little bit about our numbers. We're big. We have a lot of articles that we're publishing each year, over 30,000. So some of the programs and things that we think about implementing in some ways are easier, and in other ways are much harder. Like, for example, moderating comments would be extremely difficult for us at PLOS. And so those are some of the unique approaches or things that we need to think about at PLOS when we're thinking about building and nurturing communities and implementing different services. But we have over 11 million article views, over 2 million article downloads, and over 2 million visitors to our PLOS blogs. Lots of Twitter followers. We have many, many editors and reviewers that help us in this publishing process of over 30,000 articles from all over the world and authors from all over the world as well. Our core principles, we believe that research articles should be openly available to everyone without restriction, meaning free access, no embargoes, free to reuse and remix, that all properly executed science deserves publication, and that the underlying data should be available to aid and facilitate reproducibility. And to do that, we believe that publishers and other technology providers and is our mission to innovate solutions that will help to remove the barriers to scientific communication. So we have 7 journals, all open access journals in the areas of science and medicine. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different communities and types of collaborations and services that we provide to nurture, engage, and find these communities. But first, I'd define what I mean by community, or framework that I think about when I prepared this presentation. So there are already people gathering around content and topics. Where a publisher and where PLOS comes in and other technology providers is to add the technology and services to form generally an online community, but it can't just be online, but a home, a place for the community of people around a topic to engage with each other and to benefit from services that we as a publisher can provide them through technology. So I pulled out some of the data about the people side of the equation from PLOS's perspective. These are the numbers and the size of individuals that are passing through our ecosystem. So part of the challenge, or one of the challenges, is we have access to many people. It's it's like being on a freeway. If you have a billboard on a freeway with a lot of people passing, there's a lot of opportunities to attract the people on that freeway versus a road where there aren't as many people. The challenge is to figure out who are all of these people, what are they interested in, what natural communities are already there. So some of the things that we've done beyond the journals is develop communities around the PLOS blog network that I mentioned. We have over 2 million followers. We have both journal-specific blogs as well as subject area blogs that aren't associated with any one of our journals. We also have PLOS communities that has been very successful for us. In bio and neuro have been around for a while. Ecology and paleo were recently introduced. And these are communities around a topic area where the community members themselves, through the technology that we provide through the PLOS Blogs network, are able to maintain and communicate and share information through their blog, and there's a landing page for them in the Blogs network. Last month, we recently introduced the Early Career Researcher community. This is an evolution of a student blog that was very successful for us, and we saw a lot of activity and a need for the early career researchers to have a place where they can engage and talk to each other. So, and I'll show a little bit more about that later, but we've developed then and enhanced and promoted additional services around the early career researcher community. We also, on every Wednesday, have in Reddit Science and Ask Me Anything, where authors are available for anybody to ask them anything about their research. This is a screenshot of the SynBio community, which is the PLOS blogs network, as well as the landing page. And it's very active, and the members themselves invite other members to join the community. It was listed on Wired's magazine's 27 must-follow feeds in the world of science. So it was a very successful community for those that are participating, and PLOS is proud of being able to provide that service to them. The early career researcher community, I mentioned technology and services. So we have the technology in that we created the blog and the blog site and invited the guest bloggers to participate and continue to participate in this. But we also funded a travel awards program that's part of this community, and we had a lot of success with the first one, and this is to fund conference travel for the early career researchers. And the third part of this initiative is to create a resource center that's available to this community. PLOS Collections is another type of community we have, and this is a set of content that's curated by collection editors, and we've had many different uses. Sometimes it's just a call for papers that we internally use. Sometimes we partner with external partners that have their own communities, and they're looking for a place to have a collection and curate the collection of content that their community is interested. That's different than the blog. They're curating research articles and could be blog articles, but it's a selection of articles that are collected together, and they're not limited to PLOS articles. So this is about providing a service for a community and for that community to choose the content that they're interested in sharing with each other. And then we provide some other services like search around the content in that community. The Zika collection is one of our really successful examples of applying this technology to immediately serve a community that was very rapidly in need of service. And we were in a good position in that we had the technology and a CMS platform to put this together really quickly. We already had research articles that were published in PLOS outbreaks and PLOS tropical diseases. So we were able to gather all of the content, the articles that we had, create the landing page in a matter of 2 or 3 days, and then promote it to the scientific community and provide a place for those scientists to very quickly share the research that was being developed. So some communities have been around for a long time, and they might take a while to form and find the communities, invite members to it. This is an example of one that needed immediate addressing and really quick technology capabilities to build and promote. I was asked to talk a little bit about article level metrics, and article level metrics are the views and citations, saves and discussions and recommendations that the prior two presentations covered. And although this session is on engagement, for PLOS, article level metrics is really about our mission. And PLOS are signers of DORA, which is a set of recommendations to improve the way that output of scientific research is evaluated by funding agencies. And one of the primary recommendations there is to make available a range of article level metrics that encourage the shift of the assessment on a specific research or an author's research to be on the article rather than the publication metrics of the journal. So the way we see the article level metrics is about providing the metrics and the data for an author to assess and share the story of their own personal impact and contributions to that article. How much did that research make an impact in their community? So we don't just make the article level metrics available on the article pages, but we also have promotion and campaigns to help scientists and researchers tell the story about how their specific set of articles are making an impact using the citation data that's available at the article level. And so this is an example of a page that walks through, I think it's 10 points on ways to communicate their impact. So we talk about this in the early career researcher community, we talk about it at events, and then we make sure that the data is front and center available with every research article. So we have both a metrics tab that you need to click into to see the details of the data. And then we also always have visible on the top right the rolled up citation, or not citations, the counts associated in each of those categories. So saves and shares and citation, or saves and shares especially, come from many different sources because there's different ways to save and share, different technology companies that provide that service to researchers. So we roll up those counts. The usage data is our own. It's the data, the number of views and downloads on the article itself at PLOS. This is scrolled down on the metrics tab so that they can see the details, where the source of the data is and how the rolled up data adds up to the number in the top right corner of the article. We also provide software that allows anybody to go to, when I didn't put the URL here, I should have, and at the top of my head, I'm not going to remember it, but if you just search for PLOS article level metrics, you'll find it. But you'll be able to enter an author, do a search for articles, enter a DOI or set of DOIs, and generate a report with all of the article level metrics for that set of articles. It's free, anybody can use it, and again, it's about helping authors tell their story. Or there's other uses as well, too, maybe that authors or researchers, beyond them, there might be interesting data, like, for example, where are conversations happening around different topic areas? You can do a search in that area, get all of the articles that are at PLOS, and see what kinds of counts and citation data and shared and downloads and the counts, and see where there's activity. So coming next, I talked about a few types of community tools that we're making available, collections and blogs. What we're exploring and developing right now is called PLOS Channels. And this is a new way for communities to both publish and disseminate research. So a PLOS channel is a PLOS One channel. So communities, some will be ones that are PLOS managed communities. Others will be communities that we work with external partners, where we will invite members from that community to be the editors and the academic editors to review the articles that are submitted in that topic area and see if they, so it's submitting to PLOS One, but then also being accepted into the channel itself. Again, this is a challenge that PLOS has in that we have 30,000 articles, so this is a way to, in science and medicine, this is a way to create communities and content around specific channels in working with communities rather than just creating a taxonomy and dividing it up. So taxonomies are really useful and really valuable, but even more valuable is where the people are aggregating around specific content areas. And where that's naturally happening, there will be some natural communities. This might be places where new journals would be launched, where scientists might approach PLOS and say, hey, we really need a place to publish this topic. It's a very select field or a combination of two fields. This would be the type of way from an editorial perspective that we can address that. We also have external partners and communities that come to us and say, hey, we really need a place where we want to encourage more research in our area of research, whatever, or the topic that we're interested in, but we need a place to communicate with our community. We need a place to disseminate information to them, not just the research articles, but also the blogs and posters and all of the other interesting data around that community. But then they also want a way to encourage publishing articles in that area of research. So submitting a manuscript and to that community to be published into a PLOS One channel. And then to present the papers that are published to the readers in a platform that are both the PLOS One channel papers as well as others that are selected from all research that's available. So earlier I talked about it being content, people, and technology service. I thought I'd use this one as an example of how we're thinking about it in that framework for channels. So the content would be a combination of PLOS One articles, research articles, and gray literature that is curated by the channel editor, and that channel editor is one who's invited from the community that we're working with. The feeds could be Twitter, blogs, LinkedIn, and again, not limited to PLOS content, I think is the really important part. The people would be, there would be a channel, an editorial board, a set of academic editors to review and manage the manuscripts for those specific articles. They would also select the content, the additional content that would be available on the landing page. And then, of course, there's the readers, those who are, I would consider, members of that community. And you can imagine a lot of future services that we could provide members around that community channel. And then the technology that we're using to do this is we have a channel site that's powered by our PLOS CMS. That's the same CMS that we use to launch the collections site, which was the Zika example that I gave you. And that provides all the search and SEO and content widgets and email digests that would be expected in a research community. As well as the service part, which is beyond technology, are all the publishing processes and workflow that these communities can leverage through PLOS One. And then the third part, which is really important, is promotion of, and this I would say is true for any online community, whether it's our channels or collections or blogs or landing page, that any publisher or technology companies create, is that there needs to be some kind of promotion so it's not an island on the internet that nobody discovers. So some of the learnings that we've had related to all the different flavors of communities that we've nurtured and supported and provided services for, we really think about who will create the content, what's the ongoing maintenance and effort, because it is very easy to, especially with the technology available today, to launch and build some kind of online presence of some sort. And sometimes there's a lot of enthusiasm from a lot of people initially, but especially when we're relying on volunteers from a community, it's really important to think about who will be the one maintaining so that the content doesn't get old, the blogs don't stop, the posting doesn't stop, the Twitter feeds go stale. We've seen it all over the internet, we've probably experienced that ourselves. And I think the main takeaway here is that's okay. Some communities are just temporary, but they're really important when they're active. And it's really important, especially in science and research, that we, as publishers and technology providers, we nurture and find those communities and help them engage with each other and have their conversations. We just need to be okay that sometimes we'll invest in these communities and then they'll go away. There's different ways of curating the content. Some can be rules-based versus expert curation. Rules-based is really great because you don't need the human effort of a curator, but it's not going to generate as valuable of content as a human expert in that field hand-picking the articles and information that's interesting to that community. So I like to find a combination of the two, so that there's some concept of rules-based, even if it's just to help that curator find the articles from which to select and the content to select. And then just really important to have a decommission plan. It's okay to have these temporary communities. Whatever is built, consider the investment in building it, but also consider a plan and path to decommission that community when it's no longer active. The second part, attracting the visitors, the community members. It's interesting because earlier we had the same statement, build and they will come, Sarah talked about is not a strategy, and I absolutely supported her slide on that and the use case that she was talking about. So I was laughing to myself because I knew I was going to come in later and say build and they will come is not a strategy. And what I mean here is, what I mentioned a few slides ago, is that having some kind of website or landing page in the internet is an island until it's not. And there's a lot of components that need to happen. And it can be the best, the most impressive, beautiful looking website with the best services, but if nobody knows it's there, it's not going to add any value, and you won't build that community. So there's a few things, it's technology and non-technology programs that need to complement these communities. SEO is very important. Any technology that you're using, make sure that Google can discover it, that Google bots can read that site and know what it's about and index it so that when somebody searches in Google, your site will be returned. That's pretty standard these days. 5-10 years ago, that may have been something we would have had to ask more about, but generally that's happening more often than not. But it still needs promotion. This could be marketing campaigns through email. It could be house ads on the publisher site. It could be talking about them at the conferences that you or your colleagues are attending. And if it's your colleagues attending it, it's about making sure that your colleagues know that this community is available and know what the URL is, and then they bring it to those conferences. And then social sharing. Once a few members are there and they like it and they've validated this is a great place, having tools to make sure that they have ways to easily share and invite others to the community is what will help to grow the number of individuals who are using it. We also look for communities where there are already people rallying around content, even if it's a temporary topic. We don't want to create a taxonomy-based communities, like browsing through the different subject areas. We want to nurture and provide services to where conversation is happening, so that we're adding value. And it'll also help in attracting the members when there's already active conversations happening. And the most important, which is hard to do sometimes as a publisher, is to make sure that we're always thinking about serving the researcher. And that's what all of us are here to do, whatever role we may be in, publisher, librarian, technology company. This industry is about serving the scientists and the researchers. And one example is restricting content to just one specific publisher is not going to add that much value to a researcher, because then they'll always have to go to multiple places. That's one example. There's other examples that I've come up with, like for example, when a researcher arrives, there's some fundamental tools that they would need in order to be valuable. They need to be able to very quickly get the articles that they're interested into their own tools, so respecting the workflows and the technologies that they use, which is all different, whether they're, where they're saving their PDFs, where they're, storing the content they're interested in, how they're sharing it. Understanding the life beyond the publisher site is really important, and thinking about the ways to, in nurturing these communities, thinking about what the researcher needs and the whole corpus of information that they're interested in. That's all I got. Thank you very much. Any questions? Nope. Here we go. Hi.
Yeah, when you talk about decommissioning communities, would the community structure, whatever, can develop during those activities, would that remain permanent, or like an abandoned village?
Yeah, so
It's like a burned out village.
abandoned villages actually can be interesting from a historical perspective, that they're, or an archive perspective, that there are still members of that community, even though it's not active, that they're still referencing that. So this is why I say to have a decommission plan, because part of that plan can be, okay, maybe it's not promoted anymore. It's not listed in all of the marketing material because it's not an active, engaged community. But it could still live as an island. So for those who are still linking to those blogs or whatever it might be, that it's still available. Question about it.
My question is actually related to that. Do you find that these kind of inactive sites are hurting your SEO?
That's a really good question. As a matter of fact, I would probably approach it differently. It could hurt the SEO to get rid of those communities. Even though it doesn't hurt, well, of course, these are all Google algorithms that no one really knows how they work, but there's a few fundamental or some basics of SEO, and one is having more links to properties in your domain. So reducing some of those properties that may have links could hurt it, but if there isn't a lot of active traffic, then it may not, but we don't know how much they factor in the historical traffic. I'm not an SEO expert, but that would be a good question to ask. What it may do is not the technical SEO, but kind of the human SEO. It could hurt in perusing the sites that are available on one's ecosystem. If a lot of them are inactive, then you're going to think, I'm not going to go there anymore because 5 of the 10 pages that I go to are no longer active, and then the ones that really are, I can't find them. And but that's a good question. If there's any SEO expert in the room that can answer that better, with a better technical answer, that would be great. Anybody? Oh, we got one.
I don't know how your site's set up. I think it would depend on that. But for us,
Site setup.
it does hurt our SEO.
Okay, great. Yeah. So do you decommission those communities then?
We are in the process of jumping the get
And to answer the previous gentleman's question, when you do that, do you still make it available in any way, or is it just completely gone? So there's no archive?
It's completely gone. I mean, we archived any documents that were on there that were not somewhere else.
But the links are just no longer live. It's good to know. Thanks.
It seems to me the value of these communities will depend heavily on your curation, which I guess will be done by your academic editors and reviewers. And with 30,000 papers a year, you're already putting a heavy burden on them. I'm
Yep.
wondering what's your experience so far in getting them to do their job, to do even more, to curate these?
That's a fantastic question, because we don't want to burden any of our editors or researchers or scientists or anybody in the academic community at all. So this goes back to where there's a lot of activity and interest from the community, those who want to do more. It's generally those communities that are coming to us who are asking for this kind of a service, and there will be those volunteers that want to and are encouraged to sign up. And then I didn't mention in this presentation, but we're also looking at associating credit for these types of contributions. Just credit across the board for any contribution to research is something that we are also working on, but also curation and especially going with the early career researcher. These are the types of activities that some of them are really interested in doing. But really good question, thanks for that.
So how many of these communities do you have so far?
Well, so the channels community, we don't have any yet. This is something that we're exploring, and that we will have our first community launching at the end of the year. Collections, I don't know the number, but we have a lot of them if you go to collections.plos.org. But then the communities, we have 5, the SynBio, Neuro, the early career researcher. Those are the biggest and active, where it's the landing page and the blogs, whereas Collections is really it's a distribution of a set of articles. It's a content landing page of a set of articles. Am I taking too much time?
Yeah, I think we need to move on.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.